Welcome back, minors. My name's Amber Johnston. I'm a counselor at Student Wellbeing.
And I'm Nathan Asbell, also a counselor at Student Wellbeing. And it's time for your morning cup of joe.
Hey, Nathan, have you ever felt rejected before?
Yeah, I had just gotten back from Central America, and I saw this girl. I thought she was really intelligent and pretty, and asked her out on a date. And she said, I'm just not interested in dating anyone right now. Later on, of course, like a month later, she was dating one of my friends, so it really was me. But yes, I felt deeply rejected, so it's good.
Well, we can have all kinds of rejection. We can be rejected for a date. We can be rejected for a job or an internship. But rejection feels pretty bad, doesn't it?
It sure does. Of course, speaking fast forward, though, I'm now married and very, very happy. But I'm kind of glad I didn't date her. But we're good.
But you didn't give up on dating when you got rejected, did you?
No, I didn't. I went on to college and met my wife over a bowl of kettle corn, and life has been good ever since.
Well, I've got a few people who've been rejected one time or another, who went on to achieve greater success. Do you want to hear about them?
Yeah, I love these kind of stories.
Okay. So, Oprah Winfrey. Did you know that she was rejected from becoming a reporter because she was told she was not fit for television?
Not fit for television. The woman who owns Harpo Industries, which, by the way, is Oprah spelled backwards. The you get a car and you get a car lady. Rejected. Yes. That's interesting. Yep. I didn't know that about Oprah.
Did you know that Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team?
That I did know. And he's the GOAT.
Right. And he's one of the most famous basketball players of all time now. How about Elvis Presley was told to give up singing and go back to being a truck driver?
Wow. Carl Perkins' song Blue Suede Shoes would never have been anything without Elvis Presley. My opinion, but...
Right. Lucille Ball was rejected and told she would never be an A-list movie star.
I can't imagine anyone else doing the chocolate shoving in your mouth scene that she does in I Love Lucy. Classic.
Well, not
comedy.
To mention, without Lucille Ball, we wouldn't have Star Trek.
Oh, that would have been a true travesty.
How about Stephen King's... did you know Stephen King was rejected when he tried to publish his first novel, Carrie? He was rejected 30 times before he finally found somebody to be able to publish it.
Wow. I didn't know he was rejected that many times.
And after he was rejected, he finally got accepted. He now has multiple best-selling novels, and many of his novels have been made into movies, including Carrie. He's got The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, It, Christine, Cujo, Stand By Me, Misery, The Shining, Dolores Claiborne, 1408, and The Running Man.
Those are all... Well, I've seen some of those movies. It was one of my favorite movies when I was younger, strangely enough. Killer Clown, awesome.
Oh, the new version is really good.
Oh, yeah?
But Shawshank Redemption is a fantastic movie, and it's pretty well known. And he's now called the King of Horror. And
he really is. I remember reading his book, Firestarter, and watching that movie in you said it was done in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Firestarter's a terrific book, and I really loved it. I love the intense writing that he does. It's really quite nice.
Did you know the Beatles were told that no one liked their music and they would never be famous?
Are you serious?
Yes. And record executives even felt that guitar bands were on the way out and had no future. I'm wondering how they handled the 70s and 80s.
What did they think it was going to be, like big brass bands? I mean, come on.
I have no idea.
Jeez.
They were so wrong. The Beatles are still popular almost 60 years later, and their music continues to influence artists today.
I swear, I remember back in the 90s, they found an old recording of the Beatles, and I remember on the radio that the announcer saying, I never thought I'd say this in my life, but ladies and gentlemen, here's a new hit by the Beatles. And they played it, and it was on an alternative station, and people were begging the station to play this Beatles song back in the days of, the grunge metal, and Nine Inch Nails was popular at the time. Avril Lavigne wasn't too far away. And they were playing a new Beatles song, and everybody loved it. Everybody thought it was amazing.
Absolutely. And they still do a lot of people still do covers of Beatles songs still today.
Lake of the Ozark just had this thing called the Liverpool Legends come in. They have them come in, I think, once a year. And it is a huge event for one of the lake venues there at Osage Beach. And they make a lot of money doing it, and they advertise it faithfully because it's such a huge event. And all they do are Beatles covers.
Right. Did you know Marilyn Monroe was told that she'd make a better secretary than an actress?
JFK disagreed with that.
Probably.
And she is iconic. I mean, gosh, how many of us have seen the poster with her holding her skirt down and just the movies she's done and singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President? I mean, we know a lot of these different things that she's done, quite famous.
Well, and she's a cultural icon. They still sell posters of her and all kinds of memorabilia of her, and it's been 60 years?
T-shirts, bags,
70 years since her death.
Yeah, and nobody sells Jackie Onassis anything. I mean, even though, or JFK much of anything either. I mean, she was an incredible icon for her time as an actress, as a famous political figure. Just incredible.
Did you know they criticized her one time and said that the only reason she was famous is because she wore all those beautiful clothes, and she actually did a photo shoot in potato sack?
Are you serious?
Yes.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
Did you know Madonna was rejected about a year before she produced her first album?
What?
Yeah.
What was her first album? Do you know the name of it? I don't remember the name of Madonna's first album, but
I don't remember it. But that album ended up selling 10 million copies.
Wow. That's a lot.
Right.
And Madonna for a long time was called the Queen of Pop. And I remember she and Britney Spears were dancing on stage and singing on stage. She still produces music to this day, I believe.
Right, she does. And she is an inspiration for a lot of artists and broke a lot of ground for a lot of modern artists. She's definitely one the world would have missed out on if she hadn't kept trying.
Absolutely.
Did you know Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because they considered him to be unimaginative?
Unimaginative. The guy who invented Mickey / Mortimer Mouse and Disney World and Donald Duck and all these different icons.
No and way. Imagineering.
Yeah.
Like the whole icon of Disney is Imagineering.
Yes. The whole, in fact, their people aren't called, they don't give them titles like, for example, you doing laundry or whatever. Everyone's called a cast member there. And everybody has their own role they play because they consider every person in the park part of this beautiful play they're putting on at Disney World. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Right, and that all came from his vision. He had the vision of creating this theme park and creating it all around the magical qualities of his cartoons.
Wow.
Did you know Harrison Ford was told he'd never be a star?
Wow, that's incredible knowing how many movies he's done.
He now has an acting career spanning almost 60 years, including 2 major franchises, Indiana Jones and Star Wars.
Yeah, Indiana Jones would have been nothing without Harrison Ford.
Right.
And who else could have done
Nobody else could have done Han Solo.
No, not as well as him.
Did you know U2 was rejected by the RSO record company, a record label in London?
Wow. U2, great band.
Yep. They now have 14 albums and are one of the best-selling bands in the world. Sidney Poitier, I always have difficulties with his name. He was rejected from an acting role and told to go be a dishwasher.
Wow.
And you may not be familiar with him, but he is won several awards and is best known as the main actor in To Sir With Love.
I've seen that movie.
Did you know Michael J. Fox was rejected from a role because he was too short?
If that's the case, Tom Cruise would never get an acting job. So, because Tom Cruise is also quite short, I understand.
He got the role of Marty McFly in Back to the Future franchise, which ended up catapulting him to fame. Then he ended up getting Parkinson's in 1991, 6 years after Back to the Future came out, the first one. And he continued to act, and then he became an activist for Parkinson's disease, and he still continues to produce and do voiceover acting.
Yeah, he did an episode of Scrubs where he was a doctor that had OCD. And then he also did What was it, All in the Family, I think was the sitcom he was in. I can't remember the name of the sitcom he was in.
Growing Pains.
Growing Pains, that's right.
Growing Pains was before Back to the Future, but more
Yeah.
recently he's been in that. He was in a show in the early 2000s, Spin something that I can't think of the name of, but he was in that for a while, and then he's done a lot of voiceover acting and stuff since then. And he does, the biggest thing I know him from recently is his activism on Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, he's an amazing advocate for Parkinson's disease.
Did you know Jerry Seinfeld was booed off the stage the first time he performed?
Was it an audience full of Newmans? Hello, Jerry.
I'm totally going to picture that from now on. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple in 1985.
Wow.
He created a company and was fired by the very people he helped recruit. And then, after he was fired, he ended up using his personal money to fund a company that would later be renamed Pixar. And then he returned to Apple in 1997 as a CEO and ushered in a new era at Apple, which has led to the creation of the iPhone and the iPad. Like, most of our listeners are going to not remember that between 1985, when the Macintosh came out, and when the iPhone started coming up and we started having all the new Apple stuff after Steve Jobs returned, Apple was pretty much...
They were dead.
Nothing.
They were dead. They had this thing called an iPod, I believe, ancient technology, but it was separate. So the idea of having an MP3 player and a phone and kind of a computer in your hand was revolutionary. No one had really thought of it like he had. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to make it a seamless experience. So, yeah.
Did you know that Steven Spielberg was rejected 3 times when he applied to the University of Southern California School of Theater, Film, and Television due to his grades?
That doesn't surprise me. He was probably very bored. I mean, Steven Spielberg, a very intelligent person.
Well, he, at the time, was working at Universal Studios, and they were trying to get him to go to the school, and even endorsed him, but the school kept rejecting him over and over again. And he eventually ended up going to another school and then dropped out entirely to become a director. Mm-hmm. And Universal really started propelling him forward and giving him bigger and bigger projects. And he ended up directing movies like Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park, the Indiana Jones movies, Saving Private Ryan, and Schindler's List. And he later ended up with an honorary doctorate from that same school that once rejected him in 1994. And he was then later appointed to the Board of Trustees in 1996.
Wow.
You think they regret turning him down?
Probably a little bit.
Thomas Edison was fired from Western Union for spilling sulfuric acid on the floor.
You klutz. Get out of here, Edison. Get out of here. You're worthless. Yeah, can you imagine?
But that spurred him into becoming an inventor, and he ended up making history. Did you know Tim Burton was fired from an animator position at Disney Studios in 1984?
Yeah, I can see that.
He had just done the work on Black Cauldron, which people call the darkest Disney movie.
That is pretty much the darkest Disney. The Black Cauldron is terrifying. Oh my gosh.
So he talked them into letting him do his own project, and he produced a movie called Frankenweenie. And they ended up recently, they remade Frankenweenie and made it as a stop motion, and that came out. But that storyline was in the original movie that got him fired from Disney.
Oh.
So, did you know Vincent van Gogh only sold 1 painting in his entire lifetime?
Wow.
And he's now considered one of the greatest artists of all time. Did you know the Museum of Modern Art once rejected a painting given to them free for none other than Andy Warhol?
Wow. Whoever rejected that painting probably got fired.
Probably. His paintings now sell for millions. He just had one, his turquoise Marilyn Monroe, which is one of his most famous, just sold in 2007 for $80 million.
Jeez, that's a lot of money.
What do all these famous people teach us about rejection?
Well, the one thing that I'm seeing the pattern here is obviously these people didn't give up. All of them became famous. All of them worked really hard. All of them achieved great and magnificent things.
Absolutely. First of all, they allowed themselves to grieve. Any rejection feels terrible, and it's okay to feel your feelings about it. And you can even find somebody to talk to about it. Two, like you said, they never gave up on their dream. Many of the directions Apple has went since Steve Jobs was brought back in as CEO are similar to the directions he originally wanted to take the company back in the 80s. And it took time for others to be able to see his vision, and now Apple is a wildly successful company worth billions. Three, most of them became more successful because they failed. Failing changed the opportunities that they had available and often gave them new opportunities, and they were able to better match their skill set.
This reminds me of, believe it or not, I don't know if you ever heard of Lindsay Sterling, the dancing violin girl. She was on America's Got Talent, and they eviscerated her verbally. Told her she'd never fill a Las Vegas audience, and now she tours the world doing hip-hop, violin, and dancing to it at the same time, and makes millions of dollars, is a big YouTube star, fills stadiums full of people. And Piers Morgan wrote an apology tweet to her saying that I was wrong and you were right. And they've invited her multiple times back as like a guest performer, I think is the role that they asked her to come back in.
That's awesome. They were able to see the big picture. They were able to see that it isn't how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up that matters. And 5, they kept more than one iron in the fire. They didn't put everything all in one basket. They kept things diversified. Steven Spielberg was not only applying to go to film school, he was also working for Universal. And even though the school was not able to appreciate his talent, Universal certainly did. And he was given the opportunity to complete projects and learn the ropes without ever even getting his degree.
Several people appreciate Spielberg. I mean, look at all the different actors and actresses that got their start. Drew Barrymore was in E.T., the little girl in E.T., and I appreciate E.T. It's an iconic movie, lots of iconic movies from Spielberg. And Animaniacs. How can you not love Animaniacs? They're the best.
This is true. But they teach you to always have a backup plan and a way to get done what you need to get done. It's the do or do not, there is no try. They knew that rejection is most of the time not personal. The reasons that one can be rejected are countless, and they may or may not have anything to do with your ability. Don't give up. Reframe the rejection and look at it from a different point of view. Instead of they didn't want me, try they went with another candidate. The second option gives you an opportunity to build your qualifications and grow and try again later.
Wasn't it Edison that said, I didn't fail at inventing the light bulb, I just discovered 1,000 different ways on how to not make a light bulb?
I like that.
Or something along those lines.
He did. I love that quote.
So it's a great way of reframing.
Next, they knew when to switch directions. You aren't entitled to a yes response, and maybe one company doesn't want to hire you, but there's likely another one that does. There isn't a single pathway to success. Tim Burton's style really wasn't compatible with Disney, but instead he did what he was good at. He was still an animator, and he's managed to become one of the most famous directors and animators of our time. So, what if it hasn't happened yet, but you're afraid it will? When you fear rejection, make a plan. What's the worst that could happen? What's the most likely thing that'll happen? Look at the consequences and how long those things will affect you and what ways you can bounce back before it happens.
Well, thank you for sharing this list with me. This has been really inspiring. Some of these things about some of these people I knew about, some of them I didn't. And so I appreciate that kind of fresh perspective on failure and success and not giving up and having that desire to just keep reframing and keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys, and have a great day. For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com.